Welcome to the latest edition of the DBS webinar series, Insurance Insight, designed to give you the tools and information you need as a financial professional. Sit back as we tackle the hottest topics in life insurance, breaking industry news, and leading sales ideas to help you better understand the products and services that will help you help your clients. Now, here's your host, Kurt Fasen, Executive Vice President of Sales and Marketing.
Hello, welcome again to another edition of Insurance Insight. My name is Kurt Fasen, Executive Vice President here at DBS. And today we're going to continue our focus on long-term care. It is, after all, Long-Term Care Awareness Month. We're going to take this a step further, and we're going to focus on how important it is to have a plan in place. And you know, there are many options for long-term care, whether it be a standalone long-term care policy, a chronic illness rider, or an asset-based hybrid, or a hybrid solution with a long-term care rider on a life insurance contract. It's really just a matter of finding the right fit for your client and their needs. So to do this, I've invited two very special guests to join me today. First, I want to welcome to the program Kelly Bjordal. He's a Regional Sales Director for the North Region here at DBS. Kelly has been with the company for many years and has actually seen firsthand what happens when there's not a plan. He is a first-time guest in the program. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kurt.
All right. Also joining us today is Rob Johnson, Sales Vice President at Lincoln MoneyGuard. He joined MoneyGuard back in 2018 and has over 2 decades of experience in the financial services industry. Rob, it's good to have you back again. He is a frequent guest, and he too has a personal story that he's going to talk about long-term care planning. Rob, welcome back.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, let's get started. First, let's talk about the topic of long-term care in general. So maybe so the audience can understand the need and how important it is that advisors take time to really understand what their clients might be facing. So Kelly, I'm going to start with you. Can you talk just a little bit about why a plan for long-term care is so essential?
Sure, and again, appreciate you having me on. I think because I've been doing this a long time and have a territory where we're seeing the use of long-term care and ancillary products like the Link Benefit as a solution, that we do need to sit down and talk about it. Heck, it even has its own month now of November. So that obviously shows the importance of why we're doing this. I saw it as a couple of things. Why do you need a plan? Yeah, I'm going to share a personal story, and mine's not a good one, but there's reasons why we want to just really hone in and take a look at what this is all about. I think it's more statistics and absolutely the cost of what's going on in this country. And what I mean by all of that, to me, I've seen kind of, the perfect storm brewing for the last, I'd say almost 2 decades, because people are living longer. It doesn't mean they're living healthier. People want, if they do get into a situation, anybody wants to stay at home. So what does that mean? Well, we're going to get into, who may be the person that helps and the costs. But let's look at statistics. The scary part to me, and why a financial planner needs to be looking at this and talking to every one of their clients, because they're saying 50% of the country's population at some point is going to go into a facility. Now, I look at that and I kind of say, okay, what does that really mean? On the left side, it means, I could have, broke my hip and had to go into a rehab center for 2 months. I suppose that's considered a long-term care event, and you have to look out for what that means. Then you go to the other side and it says, because I'm living longer and not healthier, what is going to happen to me when I can't do things for myself? And then it starts getting into the money event. So let's go back to this 50%. I'm 63 years old. So I'm going to talk about a 65-year-old. 10,000 of these people are turning 65 every day in this country. By the year 2050, 22% of our population is going to be 65 years or older, meaning for the first time in recorded history, we're going to have people in retirement at that amount for the first time ever. And I don't know about you and me, but when I drive around the metro, I see these little cranes that are up all over the place building these 2 to 5 story buildings, and it's either one of two things: apartment buildings in Minneapolis and St. Paul, or probably more importantly, because they do have a shingle out, some kind of senior living center.
Yeah.
The industry's telling us they're building that for a reason, because they're looking at that 22% of the population in 2050. And if you do the 50%, that means 11% of all Americans are going to have to make a decision on, what's going to happen in a long-term care situation. So that's kind of the setting the table in my mind on why we're talking about what we're talking about today. And certainly Rob's going to get into more of the nuts and bolts of this.
Kelly, that's perfect. And when you think about it, the need for long-term care, just the explosion of the population, the people of that age group, the people are going to need. They're going to need care. They're going to need something. And, when we talk about long-term care services and what's available for those that need it, there are lots of options. So maybe I'll turn over to Rob now. And Rob, can you just talk about, Kelly painted the picture of the population growth and how many people are going to get there. And then, we see all sorts of things happening. The economy is preparing, building facilities and everything else. But what are the options for care when, statistically, probably a lot of us are going to need it?
You're spot on, man. And things have changed quite a bit. And then this isn't, long-term care options are not your grandparents' options anymore. When folks used to think about long-term care, it was grandma or grandpa going from home to the nursing home. The reality is the majority of claims now are actually in a home care setting. So we're seeing care at home, in assisted living, in a nursing home, in a memory care facility. We've seen the growth of continuing care communities, even adult daycare for those families that have 2 adults both working and they need a spot for mom to go during the day. So this has changed quite a bit. Most of those claims, from a Lincoln perspective, we've been offering long-term care for 36 years. About 55% of our claims last year were for folks in that home care setting. About 35% were assisted living, and only about 10% were nursing home last year. But at its core, long-term care is that, needs or assistance with 6 activities of daily living. If you need help with at least 2 out of 6 activities of daily living, and they're bathing, eating, dressing, toileting, transferring, or continence, those are standard across the industry. The other way that a lot of folks qualify for long-term care assistance is if they have a severe cognitive impairment. And we're seeing more and more of those claims. Those are the dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's claims. And that's the biggest growth in terms of claims that we're seeing, is those memory, those cognitive claims. So, man, the space has changed quite a bit. And I think it's important that advisors, and really all of us, shift that from that nursing home insurance solution to, hey, let's find an option to allow you to stay at home as long as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Rob, one thing we have to think about, so it's one thing to realize you've got a problem up ahead for many people, and you have a demand of that as well. But now we have to talk about, how are people going to pay for it, right?
Yeah.
So I know you and I have talked in the past. Walk us through the funding options, the categories really for long-term care.
Yeah, and generally there's about 5 funding options that most folks are going to see. And this has changed quite a bit, by the way, but you used to have only nursing home policies. Maybe there were home care only policies, and then carriers started getting smarter and say, we need to have these plans evolve. So they provided care regardless of setting. So obviously there's those self-funders, those folks that have elected not to move forward with an insurance solution. Those are the self-funders. There's been traditional LTC solutions. At one point, there were about 100 insurance carriers offering traditional or standalone long-term care. That number today stands at about 12. But certainly still a fit for that. That's the lowest cost entry into protection. My parents have a traditional LTC solution, and I'm extremely thankful that they have that protection in place. There are LTC, there are life policies with LTC or chronic illness riders. In fact, that's the solution that we see the most in terms of all of these for folks needing some type of long-term care coverage. Hey, I'm buying the life insurance, and oh, by the way, I can throw on a long-term care or chronic illness rider, much like going to McDonald's and saying, oh, by the way, I'd like to get some fries. Then there are the hybrid solutions like MoneyGuard. There are a number of quality carriers in this space, and this has been the biggest growth area. These are the solutions that are either built on whole life, VUL or UL chassis. They're a life insurance at the core, but they're minimize the life insurance to provide the most long-term care coverage available. And then lastly, there are solutions out there for folks that, hey, I have a annuity that I'm not going to use for income. Could we reposition that and leverage that for long-term care? So 5 primary options. The nice part about that is not one size fits all. There are going to be folks depending on their risk tolerance, how they're going to fund it, how long they want to fund it. One of these options, I mean, I always think of it as a funnel. Let's think about this. We want long-term care. How are we going to fund it? And it's going to narrow down. And also, depending on the client's health, that will help determine often which of these options is the best. I really also look at it as, let's keep the main thing the main thing. If life insurance is the main thing, let's do a life insurance with an LTC or chronic illness rider and have that be the focus. And by the way, let's throw on that extra LTC protection. If it's, hey, my main goal is long-term care, then that's where we're typically looking at a hybrid option or an asset-based LTC option, or maybe a traditional LTC option.
No, it's thank you, Rob. And it's good to think through what all those funding options are. And, I heard somebody say once, everybody has a long-term care plan option. Everybody has a plan. You either have thought about it or you haven't thought about it. And if you haven't thought about it, then option 1, self-funding, is what you're going to be doing. But if you don't want that just to be the default, and self-funding, by the way, I mean, Rob, you and I both know if we were a money manager, if we were a financial advisor, like many of the people joining us today, where does the self-funding come from? It comes typically from the portfolio, right? It's going to come from is it always a good time to be selling and all of that stuff? Whereas you put this in place and it not only protects the individual, but it protects the portfolio as well for the future generations. So thank you. That was excellent. I think it's important that we pause here and we think about really the importance of having a plan. And Kelly, you teased earlier that you had a personal story, and maybe we just, for those of you who joined us before, we're going to take a little bit of a different approach. I'd like you to just talk about what your story is and fill us in with what happened.
Yeah, I'll certainly do that. And again, it kind of it hurts in a way, but it is reality. I mean, you stole a little of the thunder. I mean, everybody's got a plan they can self-fund. And for financial advisors that are putting these plans together, they're awesome at putting, qualified plans, 401k, get as much money stuffed in there as possible, doing the same thing on the personal side where it's non-qualified, but you start using those assets. That's a game changer if you don't have a discussion with your client. So how was that time with my mother? My mom and my dad died well over 30 years ago. My mom didn't even know, because my dad never shared. Do we have money? Is the house paid off? The bottom line, it was, and we were able to pay their beautiful lake home off and start putting money away. But here's the situation. We also started looking at, okay, because my mom was probably at that point in her, mid 50s, we need to protect all of those assets if something happens to her. Why? Because sure, we want a family member to be able to help out if she's in need for that. But that in its own right, has its own issues of financial burdens. Someone's going to have to either quit their job or work part-time to be there. Or emotionally, boy, it's tough taking care of a person. So my mom could not get long-term care, standalone long-term care. And when linked benefits started kicking in, and there's reasons, she had neuropathy, other medical issues. In the end, there was dementia. It was just a sort of things that we could never, ever have her qualify for any kind of long-term care. We wanted it for her. And then the issue happens. My mom fell one day because of this neuropathy. She cracked her pelvis and she had to go into a rehab center after they set it. And the whole thing just started. Okay, how long is mom going to be in there? Oh, this costs money. Boy, this is exactly what I was talking about. I'm the last of 5 kids. I'm the one that was put in charge of all this. And you're having to answer questions to siblings about money and is she going to be okay? Before they would release her, because she had these issues with neuropathy and her balance was shot, she literally couldn't do 2 of 6 of the activities of daily living. So she was already qualifying if she had a policy. We had to ask our family members, myself included. I'm like, well, I'm sorry, I can't quit my job and I can't move to Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. But guess what? One of my 5 siblings did exactly that. The only way she was going to get out of that rehab center was to have somebody at home to take care of her. Quit his job. He was single, didn't have kids, but boy, I tell you what, that was a big, big thing that he did. Why am I telling you all this stuff? Well, then my mom went on he could take care of her for about 8 months and then things got worse. So then we went into a assisted living, what do they call it? Independent. So we moved all of her furniture into an apartment basically, but she had access to doctors and nurses if needed. That lasted about 6 months. Then because she had dementia, it was, okay, she needs to go into a memory care unit. My brother no longer could watch out for her or take care of her, but he still followed her back to our hometown where I got her into a memory care unit. And this is where it kind of gets everybody that's out in the audience. I put her in the best place I could possibly find because my mom deserved it. And it was in a place called Whispering Creek. It had Nicholas Boulevard and kind of golf names. It was on a golf course. It was beautiful. Yet the memory care unit did a great job. They took care of her. They got her involved in activities to try to keep the brain going. And I thought, oh my God, that's where my mom's going to, die. Well, that didn't happen, but the payments started coming in. In the end, she again cracked her other side of her hip, went into the hospital, got her out after Christmas, thinking she was going back to the memory care unit that we had her in. That felt like home and the people were great to her. No, we can no longer take care of her here because there's just too many needs to get her up in the morning, get her down at night. We had to go to a nursing home. That's where it gets bad. So my mom saw every possible type of facility. But in the end, here's the kicker. 4 years, 1 month, our family had to come up with almost $400,000. It was like 395 grand all in for everything. Where'd we get the money? We sold the lake house.
Oh,
If
wow.
we had insurance that could have helped with it, maybe somebody of the 5 siblings would have wanted to buy this property. It's beautiful, was beautiful. But all I can tell people, and my mom still had other investments, so she was going to be okay. But when you spend $400,000 in 4 years in retirement, basically, on something that took 40 to 50 years to accumulate through financial planners, through their companies, whatever they're doing, that's the issue. And that hurt. So in the end, that's why you want to consider if you can get this stuff and get it early, don't wait until you're 65. Please consider it.
That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that, Kelly. And yeah, and that's got to be, I can't imagine, it's so hard. A family legacy, a family heirloom, if you will, a lake home, a place where you hung out and had fun. Had to go on the for sale block to be able to take care of mom, and it was the right thing to do. Mom deserved it, as you said. But if only there would have been options like there are today. Well, and Rob, you said you had a personal story as well. Do you mind taking a couple minutes to share that?
Yeah, of course. I married into a family about 17 years ago who my wife's grandma was in her 90s at that time, and they fell into that self-funding camp. Hey, we have 3 children that live in the area. we're going to help provide care for mom. She's got some money. She doesn't want to go into a facility. We'll take care of her. So the plan was, and it seemed great at the time, each child, there were 2 daughters and 1 son, were each going to take a week to help provide care. And that care meant helping mom around the house, taking mom to the doctor's appointments, the eye appointments, taking her grocery shopping. That plan worked well for about 4 months. And then someone didn't hold up his end of the bargain. And the problem with that, so again, we had a great plan, but not everybody was contributing their fair share. And the problem with that is that led to quite a bit of resentment, where we had 2 individuals providing most of the care and one not really holding up their end of the bargain. In the end, my wife's grandma ended up moving in with my mother-in-law, who was the oldest daughter, which often is the case. The oldest daughter had her move in to the bedroom on the first floor of the house. Luckily, they had a bathroom there. But I'll tell you, at a point where she passed away, and it was between Christmas and New Year's, I'll remember really clearly because it was on New Year's Eve, actually, that she passed away. At that point, it was almost a relief, because after almost a year of providing care and doctor's appointments and helping bathe and dress and all of those things, that emotional and physical toll was so exhausting for my mother-in-law and my wife's aunt. And unfortunately, when she did pass away, there was so much friction between the siblings because they didn't have a plan. There was money there too, but it was that day-to-day providing care that I got to see, just as the new son-in-law in the family. I had to kind of be quiet, but it was interesting to see that. So I always look at these types of solutions as, besides all the tax efficiency, the tax-free benefits, as a solution that allows loved ones to hopefully supervise that care rather than always being the one providing it. So I think that's really important.
Rob, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. That sounds like it was a challenging experience for everyone. And really both of these stories, folks, what I like about what we're doing today is we aren't going through the detailed product stuff like sometimes we do, but rather we're telling you real stories. These are real people. These are not fictitious things. These are real people that had real things happen. And I bet if there was a way for me to have you all raise your hand, I bet everybody out there has a story. And it is hopefully they are good stories. But for those of you that haven't yet experienced this or haven't gone through the conversation yet with your client, what's holding you back? What's holding you back from having that conversation with your clients? It can be difficult. It can be a hard thing to talk about. And maybe there's some apprehensions. So what I've asked both Rob and Kelly to do today is to actually walk us through a short role play where they're going to have a little interaction and how you would go about starting a conversation. So Rob, do you mind kicking us off?
Yeah, that would be great. So one of the things both Kelly and I hear all the time is, I know I should be talking about this, but it's hard to start the conversation. I'm not sure what words I should be using. How do I open up that dialogue? How do I get people to talk about a solution that can be crafted? So Kelly, how do you start? How do you suggest financial advisors begin and work through this conversation?
I think that's great. And I can only come from, the side that I'm out in the field and I do get to hear, what stories, how do you do this? And we just happen in our region to be having a unbelievable year when it comes to solutions with linked benefit hybrid products. It's just been phenomenal. And I think it goes back to one advisor that I really enjoy, and he's taught me a lot out in the field, said, here's what I do for a living. I create money and or estates, and then I protect it for my client. I mean, that's a mouthful. And then, of course, the next thing is, tell me more. What does that mean? And I think it's the solution that's where we're at when it comes to looking at situations of people going into a long-term care mode, like my mother. I mean, almost $400,000, 4 years and a month. Those assets dissolve quickly. So I would think it would be just a continuous conversation as a holistic planner to say, okay, we've done this great job. We've got you to retirement, or we've got you on plan to retire at X. And here are the assets you have, qualified, non-qualified, different buckets. Let's protect it. And what do I mean by that? If 50% of the people in this country are going to be touched by going into some kind of a facility, that means money. And that means the stuff that we've put away all these years. So maybe these are pivot point questions that say, we all know you probably want a family member to be the person that's taking care of somebody if you get in that situation, but let's explore that further. And what if they can't do it? Or what if it's a financial burden on them? What are other solutions? Well, then you start raising your hand. We have them. We need to talk about them. Again, if it's standalone long-term care, if it be linked benefit hybrid products, that for sure. Or down to, the cost. We've done such a great job again of getting you to this point. When I say we want to protect what we've put together, here's what I mean by that when it comes to the long-term care solution. So you, as the financial advisor, talk to your clients and get things set up to where you can maybe have that solution be pennies on the dollar coming from an insurance company versus the self-funding. Because the other part that I've read, because I knew we were going to do this, and I think I'm right with this number, it used to be a little bit higher, but I think 76% of the people, to your point, Kurt, they don't have a plan because nobody's talked to them about it. So again, whose burden is that? To me, it says we all need to have that discussion, and it's the wild, wild west. So you can think about all the clients that you're working with. Have you really had that conversation? So I think that's some of the stuff that I've seen, that if it's that high, that's why we're starting to see this perfect storm solutions are coming with the linked benefit hybrid products, and having, Rob on this call, because, you're the king. Lincoln's the king in this arena. There's no doubt about that.
I think that's great, Kelly, and I think that gives us some good starters. What do you think? What are you hearing from the advisors that you work with, Kelly? What are you hearing there? What are some of the pushbacks that they're getting from their clients when they bring this up?
Well, I think it's part of maybe the next part of the role play that Rob's going to hit. It's, do I really need this nursing home coverage? It's the lack of true understanding of what this can do. It can be a setting where you're at home and you hire a nurse, private nurse full time to take care of those needs, all the way to the nursing home. So I think it's just that belief that, long-term care is just covering the nursing home. People, think, well, it's not going to happen to me. So Rob, what are, some of the things that you say to that?
Yeah, and I think for a lot of folks, they hear long-term care and their guard goes up. They think nursing home, and I am never going to a nursing home. I think we got to get folks to put their guard down and think about, the client really must agree that they could live a long life. And if he or she does, they might need extended care. And I love the word extended care rather than long-term care, because of that connotation of long-term care equals nursing home. The client must also clearly understand the emotional and physical and financial consequences to those they love, should they need care. And if they haven't had a personal experience, there are folks either you work with or family members that have had that. Ask them about their experience. The other thing that you want to do is make sure that they're aware of the cost of care. When I do client seminars all the time, I'll ask folks in the room, what do you think the cost of assisted living is in the area, or nursing home, or really even memory care? And most folks usually estimate that cost of care is about 50 to 60% of what it actually is. The problem is a lot of those folks haven't had that. So if we're saying, hey, the cost of care for assisted living is maybe around $6,000, nursing home, $11,000 to $12,000. Memory care, I know of a location here in the Twin Cities that's $17,000 a month for memory care. So it's important that folks find out what the cost of care in there. In fact, I'll give you if you go to whatcarecosts.com, so what care costs, And in the upper right-hand corner, you could just put the sponsor code as LTC. That's going to give you the cost of care anywhere in the country. And you're going to be able to print off one-page pieces. So if there's certain states you always work in, you can have those available. Really, if we think about it, and Kelly mentioned it, and Kurt mentioned it, about 50% of the time, we're going to see folks need some level of care. And it might be continuing care. They might start at home. They might go into assisted living, maybe end up in a memory care facility. It's important that they have a solution in place. And what these long-term care plans do, specifically the linked benefit, help fund that plan so that family members can, again, supervise the care rather than be the ones providing it.
I think that's great, and thank you both of you for giving all of us that perspective. I think we should talk now about solutions, and specifically for the financial advisors that are with us today, let's try to guide them through what the various solutions are. And Rob, maybe you could take that one.
Yeah, great. So, like I mentioned before, the very first option outside of that self-funder was that traditional, or what we call standalone long-term care insurance. That's going to be your lowest cost entry into providing some coverage. Clearly, the positive there is it's the lowest cost. You're going to get maximum LTC leverage. The premiums aren't guaranteed, and there's no death benefit down the road. But having some coverage is better than in my opinion, than having no coverage.
Right.
Then there's the life and LTC hybrid solutions like MoneyGuard. We've seen a number of carriers jump into this space over the last 36 years. And these plans really, the good news is, as carriers have jumped in, the carriers like Lincoln have needed to make sure that their plan kept up. So these solutions are great for folks looking to do a single premium, maybe use cash value from an old life policy, or fund it over a period of years. But ideally for those clients that like the idea of having a paid up solution, like the idea of having the premium rate guaranteed, and knowing that if they never needed long-term care, there was a death benefit down the road. Then there's the life insurance with the riders, and we'll see life LTC riders or life insurance. Again, this is that for that ideal client that still needs the life insurance protection. They have an estate issue. Hey, we want to have that life insurance. I got kids going to college. I still have a mortgage that needs to be paid for. I need the life insurance. But oh, by the way, we can throw an LTC rider on there that would allow us to accelerate that death benefit should we need have an extended care event down the road. So a great solution if the primary goal is life insurance. Those can also be funded as a single premium or over a period of years, and also with cash from an old life policy. A great way to reposition an old life policy. Then lastly, the other option we see is those annuities with LTC riders. A great option if you have an annuity out there, don't plan to use it for income, maybe even have some health challenges where you might not qualify for a traditional life or LTC policy. That annuity with the LTC rider is a perfect option. So when we think about the hybrid options like MoneyGuard come into play, I think one of the things when we think about the bullet points, we can help identify sources from the assets to help pay for that plan. Maybe it's a cash value from an old life policy. Maybe it's an inheritance. Maybe they're using it, they're going to pay for that out of income. Or maybe it's, hey, I have some requirement distributions I need to reposition. This is a great way. So hybrid solutions like MoneyGuard create tax efficiency, funding source for long-term care, extended care expenses. They protect retirement dollars and legacy from that unexpected event. And certainly they provide more and more options. I mean, these asset-based solutions or linked benefit solutions used to be single premium. They don't all have to be single premium. In fact, they could be a combination of a single premium and an ongoing payment, including monthly payments. So that's changed quite a bit. So don't get locked in, hey, I need 50 or 100,000 to to have one of these linked benefit solutions. The good news here at Lincoln is our plan, like I mentioned before, is evolved. So actually we have a fixed version of MoneyGuard and a variable solution of MoneyGuard, depending on their age and their risk tolerance. That's going to help determine. In fact, you could have an older gentleman do a fixed option and she's 15 years younger. She could do the variable version. The nice part about our fixed solution, MoneyGuard Fixed Advantage, earlier this year, we improved pricing by about 15 to 20%. So often now when we're spreadsheeted, you're going to see a Lincoln at the very top in terms of leverage available for the client. We're also the only carrier in this space that has a true 0-day elimination period, meaning no deductible. At the point you finally need the benefits, you're not having to pay additional money down the road. So more options, like I said. There are other carriers in the space. Each has its own niche. That's where the case design team at DBS does an awesome job of helping you work through that funnel and to find a solution that works best for your client.
Rob, that's perfect. And you know what I love about what I heard, and you and I've talked about this before, is the client, the solution can be customized to the client, right? If their cash flow is such that it's easier for them to do something ongoing for a certain number of years, so be it. If they're just going to reposition an asset and be done with it, so be it. And I also find it interesting. We're seeing here at DBS a substantial. If I look year over year over the last 5 years, we're just seeing a very rapidly increasing trajectory of the linked benefit, kind of the MoneyGuard type products and your competitive products going up year over year. The other thing I find interesting, and it tells me that more people are starting to think about it, is that nearly 70% of all permanent life insurance policies that are illustrated here at DBS have some type of long-term care rider on it. So if you are not asking about long-term care when you're talking to our case design team, take a moment, take 30 more seconds and ask them, how could long-term care play a part in the solution we're talking about? Because many times we can take an asset-based product like a MoneyGuard and set that next to another product. There are also different ways we can do it. So, but rather than me making up made-up scenarios, I know that Kelly, the two of you just worked on an interesting case. So why don't you talk about that? Maybe that'd be enlightening for all of us here today.
Yeah, I think that timing is everything, Kurt, and you're absolutely right. I go back to, again, this perfect storm illustrations, I think, for at least the last 3, probably even 4 years, has been all about the link benefit and, you know, the add-on, the rider, the do this, to do that. Yet you saw very minimal applications coming in. And I just think that was an education of the financial advisor, getting it out to the clients. I think that's absolutely flip-flopped itself. And boy, today is a perfect example. The case in question that you just kind of set up for us to talk about, the app came in today. It was $100,000 single pay. Rob and I actually were on a call with the advisor and the client, and Rob, tell me if I'm wrong, and I know you're going to kind of put in the details. I had a feeling that the advisor knew exactly where he wanted the conversation to go. And we were just kind of reclosing what had already been discussed. Why do I say that? Because out of the advisor's mouth at the end of it was, oh, I've allocated, talking to the client, I've allocated 100,000 that we took out of this bucket and moved over here to use this solution after what Rob just answered a few questions. So the advisor already had this thing pretty well done. I think we just kind of came in to solidify it. And when you start hearing that advisors have already moved the money, the client is getting the idea, oh, we're doing this. So if I do have any more questions, let me go. So Rob, if you want to add in on that, but the case is came in today. That's phenomenal.
We love to hear that. One of the nice parts is he had allocated the money and we were able to take those dollars, that 100,000, and leverage that about 4 times out of the gate. So rather than spend $1 for $1 of care, now the client had $1 for $4 of care.
Wow.
And that's the nice part. I love working with Kelly and the rest of the DBS team is we got on a call, we were able to answer the client's questions. They were concerned that, hey, is this going to cover me if I need care at home? What does this mean? We walk through a number of the questions and help really solidify what the advisor had already recommended. So I'd encourage all of you that work with regional sales directors like Kelly. We're happy to jump on a call together, help you close that solution. It's a really easy call. We can work around your schedule, and I think it adds quite a bit. The advisor was really appreciative of our efforts.
That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that about, and Kelly, I'm glad to hear that all came in, and Rob, thanks for your assistance on that. Over the last few minutes here, we've really unpacked a lot here, and there's a lot to understand, and we've covered the waterfront really. But if each of you could just take a minute, what are some key takeaways, right? What are one or two things that if you were an advisor listening on the podcast or watching live today with us, what would you want them to take away from your comments?
Well,
Rob?
There's two things for me. One, no two solutions are exactly the same. It worked well for this couple, might not be perfect for this other couple. Walk through it, do some of that fact gathering up front, and that's where the case design expert at DBS can help you kind of work through that funnel and find a great solution. The other most important thing, especially as we are now in long-term care awareness month, is have that conversation. We think about November being long-term care awareness month. I'd never had a conversation at the Thanksgiving table about long-term care. But what I have noticed is moms having a harder time going up and down the stairs. Don't be afraid to have that conversation. You don't have to be the expert on all the solutions. That's what DBS is for. If you want to have a conversation, again, walk through, hey, let's do a role play on that conversation. Reach out to DBS, reach out to myself. We're happy to help you do that.
Perfect. Kelly?
Well, again, I think, Rob, you hit it right on the head. I mean, I talk all day long out in the field that, come to DBS and we're here to take care of any need, life insurance, linked benefit products, whatever it is. And there's a lot of them out there. Love Lincoln, but Rob, you said it also. There's other companies that are in this space. And I don't know where it needs to go, if it's an underwriting issue or if there's a certain rider or how it's, put together that one company wins over another. All I know is just embrace it out in the field that we at DBS just bring us the information. You don't need to know everything. That's what a CDA, a case design analyst, is there for, is to weed that out, banter back and forth with you, find what's best, illustrate it, get it out, and then before it comes in, heck, we can even scrub the app. All of this because it's kind of new, the wild, wild west, even though, again, the perfect storm is creating more and more of these solutions that people are sending applications in literally on a daily basis. Now, DBS is here to do that. And that's all I can tell you is we'll educate, we'll discuss, but in the end, don't worry. You don't need to know everything. That's our job, is to help you to get it back to the client so that they do get an app and they get the process started and get the solution taken care of.
Well said, gentlemen. Thank you. I'm going to come back to both of you for final words, but I think the key thing that I want everybody to take away from today's call is this. Yes, DBS is here to help. We've been doing it for many years. Here's a map of our CDA team, and these folks are ready. As they used to say on TV, operators are standing by. They truly are. They're here to help you talk about whatever case it is you have, and give them a call and let them show you not only the solutions, but the tools we have to help with that conversation. All right, let's go back for final words. Any final words from you, Rob?
No, I appreciate the partnership. Continue to lean on them. Those CDAs or the Kellys of the world will bring me in if needed. But you're in great hands. DBS is a special agency, and Lincoln's thankful to have a partner like you guys.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you very much. Kelly?
Well, I think you actually talked about it earlier, Kurt. And again, it goes back to just stuff that I hear out in the field. And when it comes to linked benefit hybrid products, I was at, I don't even know what it was, some training session. This was years and years ago, But the individual that was presenting literally said, okay, everybody in the audience, close your eyes, lean back, and I want you to think. And the whole idea of what he was getting at is, you probably know somebody within your family, within your neighborhood, at work, through church, friends, that have had a situation like my mom's, that popped up and they didn't have a solution or couldn't get a solution. And it's an issue, and it always comes down to money, and money makes people emotional, and it's always seems to be the end topic. And when I heard him do that, he said, okay, anybody raise your hand that don't have an example? No one raised their hand. So that's, I guess, what I'm pushing out to the field. Sit back, think of your clients. If they're friends, if they're through work, if it's at church, however you got your client, you probably need to have this conversation with them, because there's issues out there. And if you're aware of them, don't let it happen again. That's it.
Perfect. What a great session for us for having both of you here. Thank you both for joining us for Long-Term Care Awareness Month here on the Insurance Insight. And until next time, thank you all for being here. We hope to see you again very, very soon. And until next time, be well, take care, be safe, everyone.